Imagine living the last 24 hours of your life knowing that every step, every glance, and every word had already been written in an ancient prophecy. Jesus walked through Jerusalem not as an ordinary man, but as someone who carried the weight of an inevitable destiny. The crowds acclaimed him, but in the shadows, a conspiracy was already unfolding. What truly happened on that night when the world changed forever? The Bible reveals fragments. But what if those fragments hide even darker secrets? From the Last Supper to the agony in Gethsemane, from Judas' betrayal to the trial before the Sanhedrin and Pilate, every moment holds hidden symbols, veiled messages, and cosmic events that still intrigue historians and believers. Behind the pain there was mystery, behind the cross there was prophecy. Prepare yourself, because today you will walk the same stone streets, feel the weight of the same cross, and witness the darkest and most revealing moments in history. We are not merely speaking of the death of a man, but of the fulfillment of a divine enigma that divided time into before and after. And now you will be guided, step by step, through the last 24 hours of the life of Jesus. Jerusalem was bustling. Narrow, dusty streets were filled with pilgrims who came to celebrate the Jewish Passover, but that day something different lingered in the air. The crowd opened a path when a humble man appeared riding a donkey. Not a king with war horses, but one who fulfilled an ancient prophecy of Zechariah. See, your king comes to you, righteous and victorious, lowly and riding on a donkey. Palm branches were thrown to the ground, voices cried out, Hosanna! And many believed they were before the promised Messiah. Yet, beneath the euphoria, tension hovered. The religious leaders observed from a distance, disturbed by this man who spoke of love and spiritual freedom, but who threatened their balance of power. There, in the heart of the holy city, the final chapter of Jesus' last 24 hours began, shrouded in symbols that still echo in faith and spirituality. But there was a deeper meaning hidden in this act. Riding a donkey was a gesture of peace, in stark contrast to Roman generals who paraded on horses, symbols of war. Jesus chose humility as his banner, an enigma that confused both his followers and his enemies. That simple journey through the city was not just a triumphal entry, but the beginning of a Via Dolorosa already written in prophecy. The people applauded, but the darkness was already moving in the shadows. The upper room was lit by oil lamps, and the smell of broken bread mingled with poured wine. There, away from the eyes of the crowd, Jesus gathered his disciples for a meal that would never be just another supper. As silence hovered over the room, he took the bread, broke it, and said, "This is my body." Then he lifted the cup. "This is my blood." The institution of the Eucharist was not merely a ritual. It was the beginning of a mystery that would echo across centuries and be repeated on every Christian altar. But at that table, among suspicious glances and divided hearts, destiny was already sealed. Jesus announced that he would be betrayed, and the atmosphere grew heavy, almost suffocating. Judas, the restless disciple, had already made his pact in the shadows. While the others asked, "Is it I, Lord?" the traitor remained silent, carrying within himself the weight of a choice that would forever change the story of faith and humanity. The betrayal of Judas was not just human weakness. It was the fulfillment of an ancient prophecy. And as if that weren't enough, Jesus revealed another unsettling truth. Peter, the boldest among the disciples, would deny him 3 times before the rooster crowed. Imagine hearing that from the one you swore to follow even unto death. The silence was broken by promises of loyalty, but the shadow of Peter's denial already lingered in the room. That night, the Last Supper was not only a meal, it was the revelation that even the closest could falter in the maze of fear. The night was heavy, and a cold wind swept through the olive trees of Gethsemane. There, away from the sleeping city, Jesus knelt on the ground, letting his humanity break through in tears and sweat. His anguished prayer was not of defeat, but of surrender. "Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me, yet not my will but yours be done." It was as though the entire universe held its breath before this man who bore the weight of all destinies on his shoulders. While the disciples, overcome by weariness, slept, darkness drew near with determined steps. Judas, no longer just the restless disciple but the consummated traitor, appeared with armed guards. The kiss that should signify affection became the signal of betrayal. The contrast is brutal, a gesture of love transformed into a tool of condemnation. Gethsemane ceased to be just a garden and became the stage for one of spirituality's deepest mysteries, Judas' betrayal in flesh and blood. At the moment soldiers laid hands on Jesus, the group that had sworn loyalty scattered. Their flight was not only fear, but a mirror of human fragility in the face of chaos. Each ran in a different direction, leaving Jesus alone, surrendered to a destiny that could no longer be avoided. The silence of the garden was replaced by the sound of chains and firm steps toward captivity. The night advanced, and the mystery had only begun to unfold. Dragged hastily in the middle of the night, Jesus was brought before the Sanhedrin, the council of religious leaders. It looked like a trial, but it was in truth a theater of condemnation. Witnesses contradicted one another, accusations were hurled without proof, and the word blasphemy echoed like a prearranged verdict. His crime? Declaring himself the Son of God. His silence before his accusers was not fear, but the revelation that truth does not need to defend itself against lies. But the Sanhedrin had no authority to execute. They needed Rome's seal to legitimize death. Thus, Jesus was led before Pilate, the governor who found no guilt in him. The political tension was clear. On one side an innocent man, on the other religious leaders pressing for crucifixion. Pilate tried to evade the decision, offering the people a choice between Jesus and Barabbas, a notorious criminal. The result? The crowd, manipulated, chose to release the violent and condemn the righteous. Deep down, Pilate knew he was washing his hands of an enigma that would haunt him forever. By declaring, "I find no basis for a charge against this man," he made it clear that the condemnation was political, not judicial. Yet he ordered the flogging and handed Jesus over for crucifixion. Human justice had failed and destiny was sealed. The clock of the final hours ticked on, and the shadow of the cross drew near. The streets of Jerusalem became the stage of a somber procession. Amid screams, shoves, and mockery, Jesus was forced to carry the heavy wood of his own sentence, the cross. Each step along the Via Dolorosa was a descent deeper into pain and prophecy. The stone pavement, still remembered today in the city, bore witness not only to physical suffering, but also to the spiritual weight he carried for all humanity. Exhausted, staggering, Jesus fell more than once. At that moment, an ordinary man, Simon of Cyrene, was forced to help him bear the cross. This seemingly simple detail holds a hidden symbolism: humanity's participation in the mystery of redemption. It was not only Jesus walking toward Calvary, it was every person, every soul, reflected in that scene, sharing the burden between pain and hope. Meanwhile, women wept along the roadside, and the crowd remained divided between pity and ridicule. The contrast was brutal. Some saw in him a defeated criminal, others the Messiah condemned unjustly. Yet each fall, each look, and each tear painted a story that would transcend centuries. The Via Dolorosa was not merely a path of suffering, it was the prelude to a cosmic sacrifice about to unfold. On the hill of Golgotha, also called Calvary, the darkest scene in history rose, 3 crosses raised against Jerusalem's sky. At the center, Jesus, on either side 2 criminals. The irony was cruel, the righteous one placed among lawbreakers as though he were just another. Yet even in that hour of extreme agony, a mystery unfolded. One thief mocked, but the other, repentant, heard the words that would echo through eternity, "Today you will be with me in paradise." During those hours of torment, Jesus uttered sayings that became known as the 7 words from the cross. They were not mere words, they were spiritual keys revealing forgiveness, compassion, and absolute surrender. From "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do," to "It is finished," each phrase sounded like a hidden code, a password linking human pain to the divine plan. The silence between each phrase weighed heavier than the crowd's cries. And then, something inexplicable occurred. The sky darkened at midday, the earth quaked, and the veil of the temple tore from top to bottom. These cosmic events were not natural coincidences. They were signs that something greater was at work, that creation itself reacted to the death of its creator. At the 9th hour, around 3 in the afternoon, Jesus bowed his head and gave up his spirit. Humanity's most tragic instant was also its most mysterious and prophetic. With the death of Jesus, the weight of responsibility fell upon a few courageous ones. While many disciples hid, an unexpected man appeared, Joseph of Arimathea, a respected member of the Sanhedrin but also a secret disciple. He boldly asked Pilate for Jesus' body, a risky act that could endanger him. Yet, he prepared pure linen and a new tomb carved into rock, as though he knew this burial would not mark an end, but only a prelude to something greater. Time was short. The Sabbath was approaching, and by Jewish tradition the body could not remain exposed. Reverently they wrapped Jesus in cloths and laid him in the tomb. A great stone was rolled over the entrance, sealing the place in silence and mystery. The scene appeared final. The man who had healed, preached, and unveiled divine secrets now lay in the cold darkness of a borrowed grave. Yet even the silence of that stone carried prophecy. And still they were there, the women watched. Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and others stood at a distance, their tearful eyes guarding the memory of what they had witnessed. While the world thought all was finished, they remained faithful until the last moment. Their quiet, steadfast presence echoed a detail often overlooked. It was the women, not the men, who stayed to the end. History seemed closed, but in truth, it had only just begun. The last 24 hours of Jesus were not merely an ancient narrative etched in Scripture. They are an eternal code, a key that opens the mysteries of existence. Every scene, every tear, and every word echoes as if written not only for that time, but also for us today. The triumphal entry was not only a moment of acclaim, but a reminder that true power is not clothed in earthly glory but in humility. At the Last Supper, the broken bread and poured wine are not only religious symbols, they are signs that the invisible can be experienced in the everyday. Gethsemane, with its anguished prayer, reveals that even the greatest faith passes through the dark night of the soul. And on the cross, where the world saw defeat, the greatest mystery was hidden. Death as the doorway to eternity, silence as a response greater than any human word. And then, the heavens darken, the temple veil tears, the earth quakes, not as spectacle, but as cosmic testimony that something greater had taken place. What the world called an end was, in truth, the beginning of a plan that spans ages and hearts. Now I ask you, what do these last 24 hours reveal to you? Were they merely the end of a life, or the fulfillment of an eternal prophecy that continues to speak, here and now, to all who have ears to hear? This is the mystery. And here we will continue to give voice to it. Because the word still speaks, and those who dare to listen will never be the same.
Been opened? You have a choice. Ignore it, or wake up. Will you keep sleeping while the conflict grows in Jerusalem? Or will you dive into the Word and discover your role in this time? Remember the red heifer, the temple, the preparations? None of this is symbolic. It's real, literal, and urgent. So, I ask you, what's stopping you from taking action right now? What's stopping you from praying, studying, sharing, taking a stand? If you've come this far, it's because something inside you is already starting to move. Now tell me, what more do you need to start aligning yourself with what God is doing? Write in the comments what impacted you most. I really want to hear from you. And if this video made sense to you, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications, because we're just getting started. The end is closer than it seems. But those who understand the signs live with courage.